Today's longboarding and learn topic is tips for riding in cold weather. And I'm going to start with my usual disclaimer. This is not training or medical advice. This is for pure entertainment purposes. And I don't want to get into a contest of who has the coldest weather. I live in the mid-Atlantic of the United States. And admittedly, our winters are pretty temperate here. We don't have the temperature extremes of New England or the upper Midwest or our Canadian neighbors to the north. But we do get some cold weather, and what we lack, at least where I live on the eastern shore of Maryland, is very much snow. So we have more opportunities to ride in the cold than I think a lot of people who get more snow, which means I think it's an important topic for those of us that live in this general area where we get temperatures in the, I'm going to call cold like 15 to 20 degrees Fahrenheit to about 40 degrees, maybe with an average of freezing. I'm going to use Fahrenheit because I know Europeans are better at converting Fahrenheit to Celsius than I'm sure most of us in the US are converting to centigrade. So why listen to me? I've lived in the mid-Atlantic most of my life, but I did live 11 years in New England and upstate New York, and I have plenty of experience exercising in the cold. I'm a reformed runner, and I used to run in anything, and I find that the faster you move through the air, the less tolerance you typically have for the cold. At least that was true in my case. So like bicycling, I have very little tolerance for the cold. Longboarding sort of in between. Walking, I can walk in the cold for a very long time, but you get moving just fast enough with longboarding that the cold can get you a little bit more than say with walking or running. So here's some tips that I have found over the years have been helpful for me for riding in the cold. Number one, keep your rides short. This is not the time to throw in a bunch of junk miles. I would not personally go for a mileage record for a month during the cold weather. Just to me, it isn't as fun. So I think save your longer rides for warmer seasons when it's just a lot more comfortable. And I would make sure every ride has a goal. Those goals can be very modest. You could say, today I'm going to work on speed work. I'm going to increase the turnover of my pushing or my paddling. Maybe you want to focus on pumping or using the skate pole into the wind or going uphill. Maybe you want to practice pushing switch. I just list a bunch of examples because I think at least if you're approaching longboarding like I do as a fitness endeavor, it's helpful to have some type of fitness goal with each workout. Now, in the winter, the goal could just be to get outside and get some fresh air, particularly if the sun's out so you can see the sun. And if you have a job where you're working traditional, say 9 to 5 hours, it can be hard to see the sunshine during the winter. And so if you have an opportunity to get out, particularly during daylight hours, that's a good enough goal in my book. I think it's also a time to think about riding with other people. I've said in other videos how often I ride solo, and that's true in the winter as well. But if you do have an opportunity to ride in a group, this is the time, I think, to do it. Just psychologically, it's a lot more palatable to wake up early and go for a long ride if you're meeting other people, knowing that it's going to be a social event, and there's sort of this thought of misery-loving company that I think particularly applies in the cold weather. You might want to check out a new trail as well. And I'm someone that rides the same local trails over and over again because I think it's convenient. And I struggle a bit with the concept of getting in the car and burning fossil fuels to go and get exercise. So I tend to stay close to home for convenience sake for riding, and also it takes less time. I'm not commuting just to then commute on the longboard. But I think winter time is a good time to think about maybe going a little further afield. It'll just make it that much more interesting when you know you're going to suffer a little bit. And I would also look forward to a small reward afterwards. So you know when the ride is over, you can get out of the cold, and that reward could be as simple as a hot shower. It could be a warm beverage of your choice. It could be going to the sauna. And I could do a whole talk on the sauna, and I probably will at some point. But I really look forward to adding the sauna in after a long ride in the cold, or even a short ride in the cold. It's a way to also extend some of those cardiovascular benefits of working out without adding any effort on your part, aside from the effort of sitting in an uncomfortably warm room. But it's a nice balance to the cold that you just experienced. In terms of clothing, this is real basic, but layers are usually your friend. We all sort of do this, I'm sure, anyway. I wear a lot of wool or moisture-wicking polyester fleece, like this top. And sometimes I'll add a wool vest on top of a couple of layers, like I wore during this video. For me, the things that get cold are my hands, and so I tend to wear mittens. I've tried gloves, and they're never warm enough for me. Mittens are warm until they aren't, and when it gets really cold, I need another option. So I've actually looked into trying electric gloves, and the first pair I ordered from Amazon, one of the battery packs didn't work, so I ordered another pair. So I'll report back on that at some point. If someone else has an electric glove recommendation, I'd love to hear it in the comments. I also wear wool socks. I find my feet can get cold, but they're usually not as cold as my hands. And I prefer to wear minimalist shoes, like 5 fingers, but in the winter, that's just too cold for me. So I'll still try to wear minimalist shoes, but I have to wear thicker wool socks. And sometimes if it's really cold, like around 15 or so, I'm going to be cold anyway in other places. So that may get to my toes. I'll wear a balaclava or a fleece gaiter that I can sort of pull up over my face when it gets really cold. But once you get down into the teen digits, that's getting too cold for me. I'll keep those rides really short, and I prefer not to ride when it's that temperature. And when it gets really windy and really cold, I think investing in some windblock underwear is something that you will very much appreciate. When I think of conditions in the winter, I have kind of a quadrant. I don't have a graphic for you, but I think of 4 factors whenever I go out for a ride in the winter. And those are wind, cold temperature, precipitation, and light or darkness. So taking those one by one, precipitation, I just don't ride in the wet. It's not because I'm worried about being uncomfortable with my body. I don't want to fall on the ground, and I never feel like I have adequate traction on urethane wheels when it's wet. So to me, too much precipitation, it's just a non-starter. I don't plan to ride in the rain or snow. I might ride in flurries if it's not really sticking, but anything more than that, it's just it's not worth it to me. So that leaves wind, temperature, and darkness. Now, if your job requires you to be, inside and working during daylight hours, you're probably going to be riding some in the dark. So it's helpful to have a headlamp and that sort of thing, or you just ride on your off days, but that can be pretty limiting. But if you have a chance to ride, at least every once in a while in the sun, to me, the sunshine, it can counteract some of those other factors. So I'm willing to ride when it's a little bit colder and a little bit windier if I know the sun's going to be out. Just psychologically, that makes a huge difference to me. If it's dark and it's going to stay dark and it's really cold and it's really windy, that's just a recipe for not a lot of fun. And that's where you get into the, embrace the suck, or harden the freak up. Like, those are mantras that are often repeated in the endurance world when going gets tough. And there's a little bit of character building with those things, but they can also be pretty demoralizing in a hurry. And so in an ideal situation, I try to look at the weather ahead of time and pick my days. So I don't ride every day in the winter. That's not my goal. Maybe 3 times a week or so I find is plenty to get my riding fix. And I'll try to pick a day that's, say, cold but not windy, or windy but not so cold. I always try to ride in the sunlight if I can, but as I said, once you start to stack multiple challenging conditions on one another, it gets less fun in a hurry. So try to pick your days. It's something that, we all have, we do the best that we can with our conditions, but I think when you're riding in the winter, it's especially good to just be cognizant of what the conditions are. That's kind of the highlights. If you had suggestions that I missed, please comment on those. As I said, I don't want to get into a contest of who has the worst weather. I know we're pretty fortunate in the Mid-Atlantic to have fairly reasonable winters, but it's still uncomfortable. It doesn't get any easier as you get older, I can tell you that. And I think you just have to kind of make peace with being as prepared as you can, and just dealing with the conditions as they come your way. As always, thanks for watching. Get out there and skate, and feel free to comment on things that I might have missed. On a more general note, please let me know if there are topics that you would find interesting for a video. And please give me any general feedback you have just about the format of these videos. I don't really know if this is something that resonates with people, if it's something that I could do a little bit differently. I'll never know unless someone tells me. So please give me that feedback. If you had any, I'm happy to try to make adjustments. What I found so far is that this format of showing me riding while I talk in the small picture-in-picture, that seems pretty easy for me to edit, and I can churn that out in a relatively reasonable amount of time.